94 years of incredible living. Vin Scully, his life tragically ended yesterday. The 67-year broadcaster for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They weren't the Los Angeles Dodgers when he started broadcasting for them. His career spanned so long, he called Brooklyn Dodgers games. 67 years, the voice of baseball. Vin Scully passes away at 94. Incredible career, and again, those kind of adjectives don't really quite sum him up. He was the voice of a sport, America's pastime, legend, Vin Scully.
Yeah, obviously, for me, the voice of the enemy in a certain way as a Dodger, but there is something you can't help but respect this guy, and really you can't help but love this guy. He is a guy who, you look at the history of sports, and Vin Scully's name is just everywhere on it. Huge baseball moments, but he also did football. He did what's been going around today, his call of the catch from the 81 national NFC championship game. Not just the Dodgers, but he had the call of the 86 World Series where the ball goes through goes through Bill Buckner's legs on Mookie Wilson's ground ball. So many fantastic moments of sport are intertwined with Vin Scully, and the term GOAT is thrown around nowadays. I mean, it seems like everybody's the GOAT. It's not. That's not how it is. Only certain people get that status. And I think if you took a poll of not only sports fans, but of Vin Scully's peers among announcers, they would all, without hesitation, tell you that he was indeed the greatest play-by-play announcer of all time.
It's rather incredible. He did 11 years of national broadcasts. So that throws a small wrench into what I'm saying. But the guy was a local play-by-play man for a team in California. And he stopped doing the national stuff before I was born.
Yeah.
And yet, growing up in South Carolina, literally across the country, I was aware of who he was. Now think about that. Could you name, aside from your team, a local broadcaster for a team? Could you name one?
I know the Giants guys, and I know Ben Ingram because we have him on the show. But beyond that, I mean, I have no idea who those guys are. I used to know like the Cubs because you knew Harry Carey. But what are we talking about here? Like, if Studio X was made out of spare ribs, would you eat it? Yeah, but like, who's the play-by-play guy now for the Dodgers? I have no idea. The Padres, the White Sox, the Tigers. I have no idea who these people are. So it was just a different era back then. I mean, back then you knew like five or six. Like everybody knew who Mel Allen was. They knew who Jack Buck was. They knew, I guess I know the Yankees guy, John Sterling, because he's been doing it for so long. But that's just how it is. You just don't know these guys the way you used to. And Vin Scully was a guy that anybody who would call themselves a sports fan, doesn't really matter, what sport you're a fan of. You knew who Vin Scully was. Yeah. And that's a rare thing these days. So especially we're not talking about a player. We're not talking about a guy who got out there and did anything on the court. We're talking about the announcer. That tells you how special this guy was.
A lot of people can call baseball games. Baseball seems to be the easiest sport to call. It's a very slow-paced game. The only information very little action. There's very little action in a baseball game. It's pitch inside, pitch outside, curveball, fastball. Yeah. There was an art form to how he did it. So I've got a couple of cuts for you. I mean, he was on, as Haydad mentioned, so many legendary calls. You've heard those time and time again, the Kirk Gibson home run trot, all that stuff. I mean, you've heard it all. But there's a couple that I found most fascinating and why people loved him so much. The intertwining of calling every pitch in a baseball game while telling some rather incredible stories and just meshing it together, and how difficult that is, because you've got to tell the story and tell it well for it to make sense while also focusing on the game in front of you and keeping that updated. That is a true art form, and nobody does it quite like this. Here's a couple of stories. This first one is about your guy, Baumgartner, and his wife.
Yeah.
Saving
the snake?
A rabbit. Yeah, so here is Vin Scully telling a story.
This is a great story.
You know, Baumgartner tells a story which, in a sense, reminds you of what it takes to be a big league ball player. It's 2 years ago in spring training, and he and his wife were roping cattle, which is what they do. 1-1 pitch, sinker low, ball 2-1. And they were startled by a large snake. And Madison thought it was a rattlesnake, so he grabbed an axe and he hacked the snake to pieces. But there's something more to the story. 2-1 pitch, low, ball 3-1. When his wife Allie and an expert field dresser examined what was left of the snake, she found 2 baby jackrabbits inside pieces of the snake and extracted them. 3-1 pitch to Turner, way inside, ball 4. And after she extracted them, a short while later, the Baumgartners noticed that one of the rabbits had moved slightly. It was alive. Well, his wife brought the rabbit back to their apartment. For the next few days, they kept it warm, bottle nursed it, and the rabbit soon was healthy enough that they released it into the wild. And Madison said, just think about how tough that rabbit was. First it gets eaten by a snake, then the snake gets chopped to pieces, then it gets picked up by people and lives. It's all true. Meanwhile, line drive base hit to center by Hendrick, and the Dodgers are in business, first and second and nobody out. So I guess really the morale to the whole story about the rabbit and the snake, you've got to somehow survive. You've got to somehow battle back. A lesson well taught for all of us.
That's
every game. Magic.
And that was every game.
That's magic. You can't fake that. You can't. You couldn't write that in a script, what he just did there. Absolutely. To take a story that is sort of hideous and hilarious at the same time and turn it into a life lesson.
Yeah.
While keeping the count and calling the game. I mean, that is something that can't be taught. You can either do that or you can't. It's no different than being able to run a 4.3 or being able to be born 6'9". You're either born with that or you're not. Nobody could teach you to do that.
Got another one like that, and then his call of Hank Aaron's 715th home run. This one, he's talking about Johnny Gomes when he played for the Braves, and famously had a pretty tough life. But this is about Gomes getting attacked by a wolf when he was a child. Listen to this.
The understatement of the day, has had a very tough life. We can give you maybe one or two stories. We don't want to get into too much of the privacy area. Let's start when he was 12. He was doing work on his grandmother's house, and a hired hand showed up with a wolf on a leash. Here's the 2-0 pitch. 2-1. Anyway, Johnny loved dogs. He had never owned one, though he had no idea about how serious a wolf might be. So he walked up to the wolf, and the man hollered at him, "No, it's a real wolf. Don't pet it." The 2-1 pitch in. Well, the man ties up the wolf, goes around the corner to mend the fence, and Johnny goes back to the wolf, saying something like, "Oh, I'll talk to him. It'll be great." And the wolf attacks him, has knocked him down on his chest, just about ready to devour him. 2-2 pitch, check swing, no swing, ball 3. Johnny suddenly, totally and completely relaxed. He was done. He knew it. And whatever he did by relaxing, the wolf decided, I don't have a rival here. And the wolf got off his chest. Johnny got up and walked away. Ground ball by the diving Turner, and the base hit by Johnny Gomes. So a one-out single left by the Wolfman, and
weaved it right into the call.
That's incredible. Just incredible. And then the Wolfman, yeah. Fantastic.
I do love the call of 7:15, so we'll play that next. One of the more iconic ones, obviously, that Vin Scully had in his long and distinguished career. We'll play that for you next. Vin Scully dead at 94. One more call from Vin Scully, though. I played you a couple, not goofy ones, but more just illustrated how or why people loved him so much, because he didn't just call baseball. He was a brilliant storyteller in a sport that sometimes can get kind of monotonous and slow, and to make baseball interesting listening to in the dog days of summer and an 162-game season is an art form. And he mastered that, but also he was very good at the big moments as well. Now, the audio is a little bit tough. You'll hear it clearly. It's just from 1974, a very, very long time ago. This was Vin Scully on the call when Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record of 714 home runs. This was number 715.
No strikes. Aaron waiting. The outfield deep and straight away. Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone. For baseball, what a marvelous moment for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron, who was met at home plate not only by every member of the Braves, but by his father and mother. He threw his arms around his father, and as he left the home plate area, his mother came running across the grass, threw her arms around his neck, kissed him for all she was worth.
Another just perfect bit of broadcasting, letting the moment breathe. Jim Nantz is really good at that as well. You don't have to talk sometimes.
You're absolutely correct. You know what I like about this? That last clip was 74. Is that correct?
1974.
74. Those first two clips we listened to are probably from, Bumgarner hasn't been with the Giants now in what, 3-4 seasons? So it's, at least 40 years gap between those two clips. His voice isn't any different. He sounds the same.
Yeah.
In both clips. In 40 years of broadcasting, all those thousands of games, voice just strong as it could be. Guy was born to be an announcer. Just no question about it.
Yeah, I read a lot about that moment. That was before my time, and I doubt you might. I doubt you remember that because you were negative age at that point.
I was not born yet.
You were negative what?
74, what was it, like April of 74? So 18 months?
So minus 18 months. I read a lot about the situation around that today because, I saw some internet comments. Why did he have to mention that from people my age? Because they had to hire people to go through the mail that he received at that time, to make sure that he didn't see the insane volume of death threats in some cases, trying to scare him into not breaking the record because a black guy should not own that record. They had people in the organization that feared that he was going to be attacked. It was that ugly. And then on the field after that home run, there was that moment, we've all seen it, where two guys run on the field behind him and they're patting him on the back. There were people in the stadium that thought, oh, shoot, something bad's about to happen.
Yeah. Instead, it was just two guys who wanted to congratulate him. So, good usually wins. Usually. So
It usually does. I mean, even reporters that covered him favorably got those kind of threats. It wasn't just him. It was anybody positive about him in that time. So it was a
typical cowardice from cowards.
Yeah.
It was just, story of many generations.
Remarkable stuff. Absolutely remarkable stuff.
I mean, that home run, Gibson's home run in '88, the '86 Mets thing that I mentioned earlier. I mean, those are three of the biggest moments in the history of the sport of baseball, which spans. We're getting close to 180 years, something like that, 160 years, something like that. So, and that's not to mention. I'm sure there's. I mean, Koufax is all of his perfect games. He would have called those. I mean, the Dodgers, have as rich a history as anybody in MLB, and of course, he was also the guy for the Sunday night or Saturday, the Major League Baseball game. So, something Richard always talks about this. You don't know that there used to not, outside of your local markets. Like I lived in Vicksburg, so we had the Braves on all the time because you had TBS, and we had the Cubs on all the time, so we had WGN. But if you wanted to see the Yankees and the Red Sox, or if you wanted to see the Tigers, who used to be a good team, or if you wanted to see the Dodgers and the Giants play each other, you had one shot. Saturday afternoons, the Major League game of the week, and it was Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola on the call. That was the only Major League Baseball game for my whole childhood that you could watch outside of the Braves and the Cubs. It was that one game every Saturday afternoon that they would call. And Brian Haydad was sitting right in front of the television to watch that game every Saturday. And so, I mean, he was the voice of American baseball for a long time, never mind just the Dodgers.
Darren in Jackson says, I was 11 and I remember it vividly. I was watching it when it happened. A couple more of your messages. The two guys you just mentioned, including Vin Scully, obviously was, in my opinion, the best baseball commentary team in history.
Yeah.
Mike in Grand Bay says, who else could tell a story during a game or during gameplay? Rest in peace. Nobody can do it like – people try, and they don't do it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so many times they mess it up. You lose track of the game. It's not just a skill, it's a gift. It's a gift to be able to do kind of stuff like that, and Scully had it in spades.
Andy says
there'll never be when you say there'll never be another one like him, I mean, there might be another Michael Jordan one day. There might be another Joe Montana or Tom Brady one day. I cannot foresee, because of the way baseball is now and the way that announcers are now, there'll never be another Vin Scully, an announcer that is universally beloved, even by the team who is his team hates the most. Giants fans love Vin Scully. We love Vin Scully. How can you not? So there will never be another guy like Vin Scully, ever.
Andy says it's pretty cool to think about how lucky I've been in my life to hear so many greats call the game of baseball, like Scully, Harry Carey, Joe Buck, Bob Uecker, and my all-time favorite, Ernie Harwell. Appreciate you. Andy lives in Michigan, but he's currently in Starkville, but he listens to us every day all the way up in Michigan. So we appreciate you. And
Ernie Harwell's the old Tigers announcer, another legend of the game.